I don't tell people I'm a hero. Heroes get parades and folded flags. I get coffee stains on paperwork and too many pairs of boots in the back of my truck. My name is Sam Whitaker, Senior Ranger, Blackstone National Park. 2 million acres of lodgepole and granite folded like a fist around a caldera the size of a small ocean. The brochures call it a living museum. The seismic monitors call it an argument with God. Tourists roll in every June with rental RVs and brand new bear spray still zip-tied to the holster. They stand on boardwalks over boiling water and decide which filter makes hell look cute. They ask me when the big geyser goes off like we've got a switch in the visitor center. I smile. I give the safe answers. Then I drive perimeter, windows down, radio on scan, counting how many ways a person can vanish in the cleanest air they've ever breathed. There's a section of the map we don't print. Officially, it's Research Closure 12, a neat oval on the internal GIS, north by northwest of the old Sentinel trailhead, tucked behind a finger of basalt that looks like a bishop's knuckle. On the maps we hand to families, it's nothing. Blank forest. The kind of green your eyes slide off. We call it Sector 12 when we say it out loud at all. I learned about it my first week in the hat, back when my uniform still creased where the catalog wanted it to. It was Chief Ranger Boone who gave me the tour. Dusty office, plaque for 30 safe seasons, the fire map pinned like a quilt on the wall. He slid a book across the desk. Not a binder, not a manual. A book, army green canvas cover, corners rounded by hands, spine repaired with electrician's tape. A little brass ring screwed into the lower right corner like somebody once chained it to a desk. The green ledger, Boone said. Read it, don't copy it, don't photograph it, don't quote it on the radio, and when you think it's a prank, take a walk through 12 and see if you still think so. I laughed. He didn't. That first night, I took the ledger home in my pack like contraband. I cracked it open on the kitchen table of my lonely apartment, government beige, government loud fridge, government view of a parking lot, and I read until the sunrise put a coin of light on the linoleum. Entries started in 1973. Short, blunt, written like people who were tired of explaining the same impossible thing. June 9, 1973. Hiker reported losing Tuesday afternoon. A confirmed watch discrepancy of 31H12M. Subject sunburned on arms despite overcast. Log to 12. J.T. September 2, 1979. 2 anglers on North Forks where the moon rose west. Check tide table irrelevant, obviously. Log to 12. M.B. January 21, 1984. Patrol heard children singing in lodgepole stand. Followed for 0. 8 Mi. Sound localized to no source. Air 12 degrees F. Smell of cut grass in gusts. Log to 12. H.R. Pages smelled like old paper and raincoats. Coffee rings overlapped like topographic lines. Names repeated over the years, handwriting souring from youth to retirement. Boone H.R. Vasquez Connell. A family you inherit whether you like it or not. There were longer entries, too. A woman who left Sector 12 with frostbite scars in July. A ranger whose radio captured his voice answering calls 3 days before he made them. A boy who came out of the trees wearing his father's high school class ring, the inside engraved with a date that hadn't happened yet. And there was one name that had a way of fishing my eyes back to it every few pages, as if the ink had gravity. Whitaker, R., my father. I didn't know he'd ever worked here. My old man died on a road crew in Missouri when I was 17. That's the version my mother could stand to say out loud. But the ledger had him in this park in the 80s, rioting like someone who'd learned to keep feelings in lowercase. April 3, 1987, patrol with H.R. boundary 12, compass swing 47 degrees east then locked. Wet pennies smell, Whitaker nosebleed, logged to 12. R.W. May 12, 1987, subject angler, emerged from creek in same footprints he entered, 73 minutes later stating no time passed. Sun angle changed by plus 12 degrees, logged to 12. R.W. He never told me. But there he was, younger than I've ever been, handwriting like a carpenter's level, keeping score against a thing that didn't admit scores. I went to bed that morning with the ledger under my pillow like a kid with a loose tooth. I dreamed I was back at the visitor center, handing maps to a line of people whose faces were smudges. In the dream, I flipped the maps over and on the blank backside, in the soft green you use to color in wherever you aren't, was a perfect oval labeled Sector 12 in my father's block letters. The O in 12 was a hole and wind came through it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The next days were normal, if you believe in that word. Elkin velvet on the valley floor. A kid from Tampa crying because he thought the geyser was broken. Boone fussing with his thermos, claiming the coffee tasted like batteries again. We put up a new closed for restoration sign at a trail spur that wasn't, strictly speaking, closed for restoration. Sometimes the truth needs a helper verb. On Wednesday, Dispatch Abby sent me a call that looked like a typo. Unit 5 copy guessed at Sentinel reports the sky is wrong. Then a beat. Her words, Sam, she sounds shaken. I took Unit 5 up the ridge. At the trailhead, a woman in a red ball cap stood beside a rental Subaru like a figure in a brochure titled Concerned Citizen. Early 40s, clip-on holster with the bear spray good sign, eyes that kept going back to the tree line like a dog watching a doorway. You called it in? I asked. She nodded. Twice. I'm not crazy. You don't have to be. I kept my voice even. Tell me. She pointed past my shoulder. I was walking the overlook loop. It was quiet, too quiet, like I had noise-canceling headphones on. Then the birds came back all at once, too loud like a soundtrack, and the sky. What about it? It had shifted. She made a clumsy gesture, palms sliding past each other, like the blue moved. You know when two video clips don't match and you see the seam like that. From there, she pointed north where the forest darkened to there. Sector 12 lies north by northwest of Sentinel. What time was this? I asked. She checked her phone, frowned. My lock screen says 6:07 p.m., but it's 11-something. It's been saying 6:07 since the overlook. A thin sound rose behind us, not wind, not water. A kind of glassy whine you feel more than here, exactly the pitch fluorescent bulbs used to make when you were a kid and schools had different smells. Stay here, I said, and I smiled like this was the kind of thing we handed out stickers for doing. I'm going to walk up to the spur and take a look. If anyone comes out of the trees and calls your name, do not answer. If your phone changes, don't look at it. Eyes on the gravel. 10 minutes, I'll be back. Why would anyone call my 10 minutes, I said, because I have learned the mercy of small numbers. The spur trail climbed through lodgepole, needles rattling like dice. 50 yards up, the temperature dropped like a coin through a grate. Breath fogged. The silence hit, that absolute kind where your own boots sound like someone else's walking too close. My radio thumped my shoulder. I thumbed the button. Unit 5 to dispatch. Abby, you copy? For a second I got nothing. Then 3 versions of Abby came through at once, one saying my call sign, one reading the weather, one laughing at a joke from last night's potluck. The sounds slid against each other like rusted gears, then clicked into now. Go for dispatch. Mark me on the 12 boundary. A beat. Copy, Abby said, flat, choosing not to hear what I'd said. 30 paces more and my compass spun. When it settled, north was to my right, then my left, then behind me, then it gave up and pointed down. The smell came, old pennies dunked in rainwater, thin as a memory. I stopped at the first ribbon tree, a lodgepole with a strip of faded surveyor's tape tucked under bark like a secret bookmark. We marked the boundary with nothing a tourist will notice. We notice. The sky was wrong. Not by much. If you'd taken a color chip called Western Sky Eggshell and dragged it a half-inch right and a hair down on the palette, you'd have what I saw. The blue was shifted as if the light source had moved. In my pocket, my phone buzzed and did not buzz. I took it out. The lock screen said 6:07 p.m. The photo behind the time was my mother in a lawn chair at the 4th of July parade, mouth open mid-laugh. Except in the photo she was wearing a gold bracelet I hadn't given her yet. I breathed through my nose like I was about to lift something heavy. Somewhere beyond the second ribbon tree a child began to hum. A simple melody, playground easy. Tac-ta-ta-ta-ta, rising at the end like a question. It came from no direction. It came from every direction. Unit 5 to dispatch, I said, and my voice sounded like someone else's. I have acoustic anomaly at 12 boundary, mark it. Copy, Abby said. Sam, you're at 22 minutes. You said 10. I looked at my watch. 8 minutes had passed. Time is a liar in 12. You learn to split the difference between what your eyes swear to and what the little hands insist upon. You learn to listen to your teeth and your blood and the way your shoulders tuck when something tall walks past a window. I turned around to head back to the spur, and for an instant there were 2 trails. The one I'd come up, rutted earth, scuffed boot prints, pine cone kicked to the side. And another, smooth boardwalk. Weathered gray planks with tiny brass donor plaques nailed every 6 feet. Whittaker family read one, and the hair went up on my forearms because we never put donor plaques on backcountry boardwalks, and because I knew the weight of the letters in my fingers. I blinked and the boardwalk was gone. The dirt was the dirt again. The humming child went silent. Not like a sound stopping, but like a radio switching to a station I didn't own. I hustled back down, boots loud on purpose, one hand on the radio like a talisman. The woman in the red ball cap was where I'd left her, knuckles white on the wheel of the Subaru. Good. Sometimes they wander while you're gone and you find them standing too close to nothing. Okay, I said, cheerful as a youth pastor, I'm going to escort you back to the main lot. Drive right behind me, do not stop. If you think you see someone you know in the trees, you do not. If your phone rings with a number you love, it is not real. Eyes on my rear bumper. We good. She swallowed. What was that? Forest acoustics, I said, and I smiled because lying well is part of keeping people alive. On the way down my radio burped again. A man's voice came through, rough with static, older than the radio should have let it sound. Sam, it said. I kept my eyes on the road. Go ahead. Sam, the voice said, and in the second syllable there was a shape my whole body recognized before my mind got there. My father used to say my name like that when I brought him a hammer instead of a wrench. It had an almost in it. Ranger Whittaker, I said, over-formal to keep something from breaking loose in the cab. Identify. Don't come in. The radio scraped like a shovel against stone. Not yet, promise me. Wait 72. Let it decide what it wants to be. The woman behind me honked, quick, a deer flying sound. I realized I'd let the truck drift toward the ditch. I corrected, hands light on the wheel. Copy your last, I said to the voice of a dead man. Wheel static. Then Abby, clean as daylight, Unit 5 status. En route to main lot, 1 civilian out. Copy. A pause. Sam, your channel lit up with an ID tag I haven't seen. R. Whitaker, you got a training tape playing in there. No, I said and kept my voice flat as granite. No training tape. The rest of that afternoon, I pretended to be busy. I wrote a citation for a campfire that smelled like gasoline. I helped a kid dig a Lego man out of a gopher hole near the amphitheater. I refilled the brochure rack and arranged the map so Sector 12 faced the plexi like a dare only I could see. At closing, Boone propped himself in my doorway with the green ledger tucked under his arm. You went to the boundary, he said, not a question. I nodded. You heard something. He didn't look at me when he said it. He looked at the ledger like an old dog that kept leaving ducks on the porch. Someone, I said. I kept my face where faces go when you're telling the truth but not the whole of it. An older male gave a name. Boone blew air out through his nose, the sound men make when they hear their own expiration date whispering. You wait 72, he said. I don't care if they're your Sunday school teacher. I don't care if they brought your favorite pie. You wait. That is the only rule in 12 that ever loved anybody back. What if they are hurt? He tapped the ledger's spine with one finger. Things that come out early don't come out right. We ate vending machine dinner at our desks. We let the radio fill the room with weather and beeps so we didn't have to hear other things. At 9, I took the ledger home, propped it open on my kitchen table, and turned to 1987 like a forensics tech walking back through a burned-out house. Dad's entries clustered in spring, then a gap, then one last line in late June. June 29, 1987, Patrol 12 boundary alone. Voice on Channel 3, Sam. No one on duty W/that name. Heard request to wait 72. Logged, smell of cut grass in snowfield. Note to self, bring the boy next summer. Show him the elk. Show him the right trails. R.W. I sat there a long time with my finger on the words the boy like a rosary. I tried to remember if he'd ever said anything about coming west. In all the versions of him I'd built out of old photos and the way my mother's mouth tightened around his name, there wasn't a ranger in any of them. Just a man in a portable orange vest, sweating through Missouri Augusts, teaching me how to coil an extension cord without making it mad. At 11:19 p.m., my phone buzzed. No one texts me that late except Abby when a bear gets too interested in trash. It was a video message from an unknown number. The thumbnail was trees. Lodgepole. The subject line was for Sam 6:07 p.m. I tapped it. The screen filled with that wrong sky and the first ribbon tree standing like a guard post. The camera panned and I saw my own boot prints, my own scuff where I'd kicked a cone. Wind tangled the high needles. From somewhere out of frame came a hum, playground simple. The camera juddered like a hand shook. The image smeared for a frame, and when it resolved, the trail was a boardwalk, the brass plaques sharp enough to cut yourself on. The lens dipped. A hand came into frame. It was a large hand with a nicked knuckle and a carpenter's tan line where a ring had been. A man's voice, breath close to the mic, said, "Buddy." The hum stopped. Silence expanded, absolute and mean. The video blew to static, the old kind, snow and hiss, And when the image reformed, I was staring at my own kitchen table, at the green ledger open to June 29, 1987. A pen I did not own lay on the page like someone had just set it down. Under my father's line, in handwriting that matched his but slanted by 30 winters, a new sentence scratched itself into being as I watched. Sam, wait 72. Tell Boone to get the brass ring ready. If you don't know what that means yet, you will. Smell the grass first. R.W. The word sat there wet. A drop of ink swelled on the tail of the W, fat as a tear, then snapped free and soaked into the paper. The room smelled like fresh-cut lawn in July. On my phone, the lock screen still said 6:07 p.m., and my mother's bracelet flashed gold in the parade sun. I picked up the pen that wasn't mine. It was warm. I wrote because that's what we do when we are afraid and want to be true anyway. October 2, 20, voice on Channel 3, video at 2319. New note under RW entry, smell of grass confirmed. Wait 72, order understood. SW, somewhere far north by northwest, past a stand of lodgepole and a seam in the sky. A place with my family's name in it rolled over in its sleep. Wait 72, get the brass ring ready. I didn't sleep that night, not really. You don't sleep after watching your dead father write in real time across a journal 30 years too late. You just shut your eyes and wait for morning like a passenger waiting for a train wreck. When dawn came, I drove back to the station. Boone was already there, boots on desk, thermos in hand, eyes like gravel pits. The green ledger lay open between us. I pushed the page across. He didn't flinch, didn't ask how fresh ink had appeared under a 1987 entry. He just rubbed his thumb across the words wait 72 until the skin came up black. Now you know, Boone said. His voice was the sound of a man who had given this speech too many times. That's the only rule that matters in 12. Every ranger learns the official search and rescue guidelines. Respond within hours, mobilize within daylight, call in aviation if someone doesn't show by nightfall. Yellowstone policy, Denali policy, Smokies policy, same everywhere. But in 12, those rules are death warrants. You don't go in early, Boone said. Doesn't matter if it's your wife, your kid, your priest. If they cross into 12, you let 72 hours pass. No less, because what comes out before that, he tapped the ledger, isn't them. He showed me case after case. 1992, hiker pulled out after 16 hours, physically fine. Except his reflection didn't match. He blinked out of sync in every mirror until the day he stopped showing up at all. 2004, camper rescued after 2 days. 8 meals, told jokes, called her parents. On the 72nd hour, she dissolved into a shadow-shaped vapor right in front of the ranger who'd saved her. 2011, 2 college kids. We broke the rule to make their families happy. They came back walking, talking, but their GPS trackers showed they were still inside 12. The bodies with us were only echoes. The echoes faded in a week. Boone shut the ledger with a slap. The zone makes copies, borrowed versions, lures. It spits them back at you before it's finished with the originals. That's why we wait. I asked him what the ledger meant about the brass ring. He left, came back with a box the size of a shoebox. Inside, a chain of old surveyor's brass links polished from too many hands. At the end was a ring the size of my palm, heavy enough to drag my arm down. Anchor, he said simply. Metal, voice, memory, that's how you pull someone back. If you ever try extraction, you clip this ring to your belt, tie the line off to solid earth, and you keep someone on radio outside reading you normal life. Baseball scores, coffee breaks, what's for dinner. Mundane as hell, the ordinary is the tether. He looked me dead in the eye. Lose that ring, you're gone. Lose the voice on the other end, you scatter. That's all there is. Dispatch Abby had been quiet all morning, watching us through the glass. Finally, she slid a printout across the desk. Pulled last night's channel traffic, she said. The sheet showed my call to dispatch, but between my words was a third voice, faint but clear. Sam, don't come in. Wait 72, tagged by the system as R. Whitaker, my father. Abby's hands shook when she pushed her coffee mug away. You had an ID ping from a man dead 30 years, she said. Either the radio is haunted or your family's deeper in this than you want to admit. That afternoon a call came in. Hikers near Sentinel saw two men standing at the boundary. When rangers arrived, there were no people, no tracks, just footprints in fresh dust, two sets, walking side by side, fading toward 12. The footprints matched my boots, one pair current issue, the other, worn tread pattern from the 1980s. I stood at the tape line as the sun dropped, smelling that thin grass scent in the cold. My boots side by side with his. 72 hours. That was the rule. But every instinct in me wanted to break it. And from somewhere deeper in the trees, I swear I heard my own voice, just slightly older, just slightly cracked, calling my name. Sam hears his own future voice coming from inside Sector 12. You learn to live with strange smells out here. Sulfur from the hot springs, pine sap cooking in the sun, even the musk of a bison herd that can roll down the valley like old leather. But the grass smell, that's different, because it never belongs. It came back the next morning, drifting into the ranger station while I poured burned coffee into a paper cup. Out the window, snow still patched the meadow. The thermometer said 33 degrees, nothing green within miles, yet the air was thick with the scent of freshly cut lawn, that wet sweet mix you only get in July suburbs when somebody's mower has just died mid-pass. Boone noticed too. He set down his thermos without a word. Boundaries leaking, he muttered. We drove out together, following the smell like bloodhounds. It wasn't constant. It came in waves, faint, then strong, then gone, like the wind itself couldn't decide which season it belonged to. At the Sentinel spur, Boone tied orange tape on a tree limb where the smell was sharpest. Grass means time's thin, he said. When you smell it, keep count. One whiff is nothing, 3 or more in a row, write it in the ledger. I pulled out my notebook. My handwriting looked small and nervous against the paper. Entry April 6, 20. Smell of cut grass at Sentinel, 3 intervals in 5 minutes. Logged with Boone. He nodded like a teacher grading homework. Good, keep doing that. Ledger's not just record keeping, it's communication. Other rangers read it, even the ones who shouldn't exist anymore. Back at dispatch, Abby waved us over. She had the weather logs open on her screen. Look at this, she said. Barometer jumped 3 millibars in less than 2 minutes, right when you marked the smell. Wind shifted 90 degrees, but the anemometer never moved, like the air decided to pretend it changed direction. Boone grunted. Thin time bleeds into thin weather, always has. Abby scrolled further. And here's the freaky part. Lightning detector picked up a single strike at exactly 6:07 p.m. last night. Clear skies, no storms within 200 miles. I didn't have to say it. 6:07 again. The cursed time. Late afternoon, a tourist couple reported strange trails near the closed zone. We hiked out and found them, footprints pressed into frost, perfectly fresh, 2 sets side by side, one smaller, one larger. Boone crouched, studying the edges. "These aren't new," he said. "Look at the melt." He was right. The prints had thin crusts of ice reforming inside them. They weren't being made, they were being remembered. The smell of grass rose, heavy and wrong. I snapped a photo. When I checked the image on the screen, the footprints weren't there. Just smooth frost. But when I looked up again, the prints were still in the ground, waiting. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table with the green ledger open. The apartment smelled like detergent and paper and nothing else, until the scent slid in, sudden and sharp. The page in front of me was blank. Then the pen I'd left on the counter rolled by itself across the wood, stopping at the margin. I didn't touch it. It lifted, scratched 2 words into the ledger, crooked and fast: cut grass. Then silence, no movement, just ink drying on the page. I leaned back, heart hammering. The words looked like mine. The same tilt, the same loops, except I hadn't written them yet. Somewhere beyond the paper, past the smell, past the frost and the footprints, something was writing back in my own hand. Sam realizes the grass smell is not just a warning, it's communication, and the writer is himself from another timeline. The smell of grass lingered for days. Even when it wasn't there, I caught myself sniffing the air like a dog in a thunderstorm. Every whiff felt like a countdown. Boone kept repeating the same rule. 72, Sam. Wait 72. Don't let it trick you. But rules feel paper thin when you're staring at something impossible. It happened on the Sentinel Spur, the same trail where I'd heard the humming child. Snow had hardened overnight, slick enough to crunch under my boots. The air was still, so still it felt pinned in place. I came around a bend, and there it was. A boardwalk. Wooden planks stretched 50 feet ahead, clean and gray, handrails built from timber that hadn't aged a day. But there is no boardwalk in Sentinel. Never has been. I blinked and the dirt trail snapped back. 2 seconds, maybe less, but the sound lingered, the hollow thump of footsteps on wood, echoing down a path that wasn't there. The second time lasted longer, almost a full minute. I dropped to one knee, pulling my phone out fast. The boardwalk flickered into place again, planks, rails, even the brass donor plaques nailed every few feet. I leaned close to one. The engraving read, "Whitaker family, 1995. That's my name, my family. But in 1995, my father was already dead, and nobody in my bloodline had ever donated a dime to Blackstone." Another plaque glinted further down, "Boone and Sons." Boone never had sons. He barely had the stomach for co-workers. I snapped a photo. When I checked the screen, just dirt and snow. The boardwalk erased itself from digital memory. That night Boone and I argued. I told him what I'd seen, what I'd read. He slammed his palm on the ledger so hard the pen jumped. "You're looking too close," he barked. "Ledger's a record, not an invitation. You keep staring at it, and it'll start staring back." I almost shouted, but the radio cut me off static, then a man's voice. "Sam." I froze. Not my father's this time. This voice was mine, older, rougher, a smoker's rasp I don't have yet. It said, "Don't follow the wood, that's how it gets you." Later, walking back to my truck, I saw it. Condensation on the driver's side window. A handprint, small as a child's, pressed from the inside. I wiped it with my sleeve, but it didn't smear. It stayed. 5 hands layered on top of each other, as if the same child had grown older in an instant. 5 ages, same palm. And the smell came. Cut grass, stronger than ever. I sat behind the wheel, staring at the layered prints until my breath fogged the glass. In the distance, from the direction of Sector 12, the echo of hollow footsteps on wooden planks tapped through the trees. There was no boardwalk, and yet there was. Sam realizes the boardwalk is a timeline overlay, and it already carries his family's name. Abby is good at her job. Too good, maybe. She catches things the rest of us would rather miss. And lately the zone has started catching her back. It began with her inbox. She called me over one morning, pale under the fluorescent lights. "Sam," she whispered, "this came last night." On her screen was an email sent from her own account, dated 3 days in the future. The subject line, "Do not answer the name the forest uses." No body text, just those words. She clicked the header. The timestamp was locked. The server confirmed it. An email from May 9th, except today was May 6th. Abby folded her arms tight. "Tell me this is a prank." I didn't. The days that followed, dispatch felt bent. A weather alert popped on her console 30 minutes before the storm clouds rolled in. A tourist's emergency call lit her screen before the phone ever rang. And worst of all, her own laugh, bright, sharp, played over the channel seconds before she actually laughed. She started tallying them. A notebook beside the console filled with short notes. Out of order 11:12 a.m., barometer. Out of order 2:47 p.m., phone ring. Out of order 4:03 p.m., my voice. By the end of the week, she had 23 entries. Boone told her to stop, but I saw the way he stared at the list, jaw tight, like a man reading his own autopsy. It was close to midnight when it happened. The station was empty except for Abby sipping bad coffee, eyes glued to the screens. The radio on Channel 3 lit up. That channel was powered off. No reason for it to spark, and then she heard my voice. "Abby," it said, ragged, urgent, "help me, I'm lost." She swore later she could hear my boots crunching snow behind the words. Except I was at home in bed, dead asleep. Abby grabbed the mic anyway. "Sam, where are you?" Static, then laughter, her laughter echoing back, warped like tape slowing down. She didn't tell me until the next morning. She just slid a flash drive across the table. "Play it," she said. The file was less than 10 seconds, my voice pleading, her reply the warped echo of herself. And under it all, faint but unmistakable, the sound of children humming, that same playground melody. I sat back, stomach cold. Abby's face was pale, eyes ringed with sleeplessness. "If that was you," she whispered, "then who's sitting across from me right now?" Abby begins to question whether the Sam in front of her is the real one, or an echo bleeding through from Sector 12. Boone never talks about his early years. He carries them like a limp you can't quite see, something under the surface, slowing him down when the weather shifts. But after Abby's echo incident, after her own voice came back to her warped through the static, Boone called me into his office. He shut the door, closed the blinds, and set the green ledger on the desk between us like a loaded weapon. "Sit down, kid," he said. And though I'm 40, he still calls me kid. "You've read the protocol, you know the 72 rule. Well," he tapped the ledger, not looking me in the eye, "I broke it once. I waited." The silence stretched until the clock on the wall seemed to tick too loud, then not at all. It was 1989, early spring. We got a call, a hiker named Calder, young guy, local. His girlfriend reported him missing after he didn't come back from fishing near 12. Boone swallowed hard, like the words were too dry. Protocol said wait 72, but he was 22 years old. Family knew me by name. I thought I could beat the odds. He rubbed his face with both hands before continuing. "We went in after 12 hours, found him sitting on a log, rod in hand, looked fine, smiled when he saw me. I asked if he was hurt. He said no. said he'd only been gone an hour. Boone's eyes finally met mine. They always say that. He leaned forward, his voice dropped. But when we brought him out, things weren't right. Thermals showed his body temp at 94 when it should have been 98. His shadow bent the wrong way at sundown, and when he talked, God help me, when he talked, his mouth didn't match the words, half a second behind like bad dubbing. Boone slapped the ledger shut. I saved a copy, Sam. That's all I did. Calder came back wrong, and the real one, he never came back at all. I blinked. Wait, Calder, Boone nodded. He still lives in town. Folks just think he's a little off, keeps to himself, works odd jobs, but he's different, always one step out of sync. I remembered seeing him, a thin man at the hardware store standing too long in front of the light bulb aisle. People gave him space. His breath fogged when no one else's did. Boone rubbed his jaw. You want proof the rule matters? Talk to Nate Calder. Look him in the eyes. You'll know. I started to answer, but Boone cut me off. Don't get cocky, Whitaker. I broke the rule once, and I've been paying for it ever since. Calder's not the only one who came back changed. I did too. He pushed up his sleeve. The skin on his forearm looked normal at first, but when the overhead light flickered, the veins shifted, fading in and out like they belonged to two different bodies at once. Sometimes I wake up, Boone said, and my bones ache like they are 30 years older. Sometimes my voice comes out a second before I mean it to. Sector 12 doesn't just take the lost, it takes the rescuers too, piece by piece. He leaned back, breathing hard. Don't you ever think you're immune because of your bloodline? The zone doesn't play favorites. Before I could reply, the radio on Boone's desk crackled. Static, then a voice. Not mine, not Abby's, not Boone's. Calder reporting in sector clear. The voice was crisp, calm, and it came from Channel 3, the dead channel. Boone went pale. That's his old call sign, he whispered. We retired it 30 years ago. The radio spat once more. Calder, Calder, Calder. Each repetition warped like tape stretching thin. I grabbed the handset, but Boone slammed his palm over mine. His eyes were wide, bloodshot. Don't answer, he hissed. Not on that channel, not with that name. Boone admits his past mistake, and the Calder call sign returns on the dead channel, begging for an answer. Boone didn't sleep after the Calder broadcast. I don't think Abby did either. Me. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, listening for the hum that shouldn't exist. By morning, Boone had made a decision. If you're going to keep sticking your nose this close to 12, Whitaker, you need to know how to anchor. You need to train with the ring. He brought out the chain again. Brass links, dull with age but heavy as stone. At the end, the ring, wide enough to slide over my forearm, warm to the touch even in cold air. Metal remembers, Boone said. Brass holds better than steel, something about conductivity. The ring grounds you when the zone tries to scatter you. He clipped it to my belt and fastened the line around a lodge pole. Then he pressed the radio into my hand. Rule 1, never step over without a tether. Rule 2, keep a voice outside. That's your anchor. Normal words from normal time. Baseball scores, grocery lists, birthdays. Doesn't matter what, the ordinary is the lifeline. He glanced at Abby through the dispatch window. She's the best at it, clear voice, believes in normal. We drove out to the edge of 12 where the orange survey tape fluttered. Boone pointed at a basalt boulder that straddled the seam. Step past it, he ordered. Not far, just enough to feel the pull, then use the ring to come back. I swallowed, my palms were already slick. I stepped forward. The world shifted. Temperature dropped 20 degrees. Compass spun. Air tasted like wet pennies, and the smell hit cut grass sharp and sweet. Whitaker status, Boone barked. I keyed the radio, voice trembling, in feeling it. Then Abby's voice came through, calm and bright like morning coffee. "Sam, listen to me, it's Friday. Kids from the elementary are doing their science fair tonight. I signed up to judge. My niece is bringing baking soda volcanoes. You'll hate them. Everyone hates them, but that's the point. They are normal." Her words were a rope. Each detail, science fair, baking soda, cardboard volcanoes, pulled me back toward linear time. I stepped backward, boots crunching, brass ring tugging on my belt. The cold air thinned, the smell vanished, and I was out. Boone studied me for a long time, eyes unreadable. "You felt it, didn't you, the urge to go deeper, to see what's behind the curtain?" I nodded, couldn't deny it. He hooked the ring off my belt and coiled the chain. "That urge is how it gets you. The ring keeps you here. The voice reminds you why you want to stay." He paused, then said, almost too quiet, "Your father used to train the same way. Said you were the reason he always made it back." That night, after I logged the drill in the ledger, Abby rushed in, phone in hand. "Sam, you need to see this. On the park's official YouTube channel, the one used for wildfire updates and safety PSAs, a new video had posted automatically. The thumbnail showed Boone and me at the boundary that morning. The title, Extraction 7:43 a.m. tomorrow. Tomorrow, not today, tomorrow." I hit play. The video showed Boone and me walking into Sector 12 at dawn. Our clothes the same, our gear the same, our movements precise. But the file timestamp was 24 hours in the future. Boone stared at the screen, face gone slack. "That's not a warning," he whispered. "That's an appointment." A video from the future shows Boone and Sam entering Sector 12 tomorrow at dawn. Proof the zone is already writing their story. The video haunted us all night. Abby replayed it frame by frame, searching for glitches. Boone sat with his head in his hands. I kept staring at the timestamp. Tomorrow, 7:43 a.m., like the zone had booked us in advance. We didn't have to wait long. The call came before dawn. 2 graduate students, permits in hand, had ignored the closures. They wanted thermal readings from the creek near 12. By the time we traced their GPS, 1 dot blinked outside the boundary. The other sat dead center in the zone. Boone muttered a curse. "It's happening early." The video wasn't a warning, it was a schedule. He shoved the brass chain into my hands. "Get ready, Whitaker, today's your first pull." We tied off at the survey marker. Brass ring clipped to my belt, chain taut, Boone holding the line like a lifeline. Abby's voice crackled in my ear. "Sam, listen to me. It's Tuesday. Main Street diners running their pot roast special. I know you hate pot roast, but Boone loves it. Remember that smell? Salt and pepper, not cut grass. That's real. Stay with me." Her words steadied my breath. Normal things, anchors. I stepped into 12. Air pressure dropped. My ears popped. The smell hit wet pennies, then fresh grass. Ahead 50 yards, the missing student stood motionless, hands dangling at his sides. "Sir," I shouted, "stay where you are." He turned, and every movement was wrong. His body bent in clean, sharp angles as if invisible strings jerked him into place. Head tilting, arm rising, legs stiff as lumber. Boone's voice boomed across the line. "Anchor up, Sam, use the ring." I wrapped both hands around the brass and stepped closer. The student's eyes locked on mine. He opened his mouth, and my own voice came out. "Sam, help me, please." I felt the urge to answer, to drop the chain, step forward, and grab his hand. But Abby cut in, fierce and steady. "Sam, it's Tuesday, pot roast at Main Street. Your cabin still smells like pine cleaner because you overdid it yesterday. You left your coffee mug on my desk. That's real, that's here. Pull him back." I lunged forward, looped the brass ring around the student's wrist, and yanked. For a second the world tore, air shimmered. My hand flickered, old, young, scarred, clean. The student screamed in my voice, high and broken, as if he was being dragged out of his own echo. Then collapse. We fell backward past the boundary, both of us gasping on solid ground. The boy was alive, heart racing, skin clammy, but his eyes, they weren't right. One pupil was dilated, the other shrunk to a pin. He whispered over and over, I was home, but home wasn't there. The second student, we never found him. His GPS still blinked deep inside 12, blinking not just in space but in time. Sometimes the signal sat a day behind, sometimes a week ahead, a dot forever lost in the map. Back at the station, Boone poured whiskey into his coffee mug, hands shaking. You saved one, he said. That's better than most. I went to wash the brass ring, but when the water hit it, frost spread across the sink, a perfect circle of ice hissing in the summer air, and on my phone a new video uploaded automatically. Thumbnail, the student I'd pulled back. Title, Don't Trust the Copies. Date stamp, 3 months from now. Sam saves one student, but a video from the future warns that the survivor may not be what he seems. The rescued student slept in the infirmary cot, eyes twitching like he was still watching something I couldn't see. He kept whispering the same line, home wasn't there anymore. I wrote it in the green ledger, careful block letters, the way Boone taught me. But when I closed the book, something caught my eye. A photo, tucked between the pages, yellowed with age. It showed a group of rangers standing at the boundary of 12. The edges curled, the colors faded, but the faces were clear enough. Boone was there, 30 years younger, hair still black. Beside him, a woman in uniform I didn't recognize, and another man, tall, square shoulders, my jawline, my eyes, but the year printed on the back said 1962. Whitaker R., that was the name scribbled in pencil, my grandfather, except my father had never mentioned him working here, except he looked almost exactly like me. That evening, a visitor arrived unannounced. A retired ranger, stooped, hair gone white, Patricia Diaz. I knew her name from the ledger, the woman who had gone into 12 in 2001 and come back aged 15 years in 6 hours. She leaned on the doorframe, eyes sharp despite the years. You've seen the photo, she said before I even spoke. I nodded. She lowered herself into a chair, bones creaking. Your bloodline is tied to this place. It's why you hear the voices, why you don't scatter as quickly as others. Your grandfather was keeper before Boone. Your father tried and failed, and now it's you. I turned to Boone, waiting for denial for anything, but he just stared at the floor, jaw tight. You should have told me, I snapped. Boone's voice cracked in a way I'd never heard. You think I wanted this for you? Kid, you were marked before you were born. That night, alone, I opened the ledger to my father's entries. Fresh ink bled across the page. Not mine, not Boone's. Sam, don't fight it. Blood remembers. The zone chooses. It's always been us. My hand shook as I traced the letters. They were in my own handwriting, but older, shaky, like a version of me that had already lived too long inside 12. I slammed the book shut, but the room wasn't empty. In the window glass I caught my reflection, except it wasn't in sync. When I raised my hand, the reflection lagged half a beat behind. And when its mouth opened, no sound came out, just the faint smell of cut grass drifting. Sam realizes his family is bound to Sector 12, and his own reflection is no longer entirely his own. 3 nights after the reflection incident, I found a package waiting on my desk. No return address, just my name written in thick black marker. Inside, a thumb drive and a single note. You're not alone, coordinates enclosed, attendance required. Station 0. I plugged it into the station computer, half expecting smoke. Instead, folders filled the screen, dozens of PDFs, audio logs, video clips, each labeled with a different park. Denali, Grand Canyon, Everglades, Glacier, all of them had their own zones. Different names, same sickness. Denali called them boundary lines. The canyon had echo sites, Everglades transition wells. Each folder had reports of missing hikers, warped voices, clocks that wouldn't hold steady. It was Sector 12 multiplied across the map. At the bottom, a text file, one line of coordinates. A date, November 11th. And a header, Annual Summit, Keepers Only. I Googled the location. Middle of nowhere, Montana. No roads, no towns, just wilderness. Boone read over my shoulder, jaw tight. "You're not going," he said flatly. "Why not?" "Because once you sit in that circle, you don't walk away the same. And because I've been keeping you out of that mess as long as I could." Patricia, who'd been quietly sipping tea in the corner, shook her head. "No, Boone, he has to. The bloodline doesn't give him a choice. I told my supervisor I needed family leave. He didn't ask questions. After 19 years, you earn a little trust." I drove through the night, following GPS deep into Montana backcountry. The paved road ended, then the dirt, then the trail, finally just forest and silence. At dawn, I found it. An abandoned ranger station, 1950s style, windows boarded, flagpole rusted. But inside, it wasn't abandoned. 23 rangers sat in a circle. Different parks, different uniforms, all wearing the same hollow look in their eyes. I recognized faces from the files. Sarah Chen from Denali, Marcus Williams from the Grand Canyon, Elena Rodriguez from the Everglades, each one a keeper. The meeting began with a voice I thought I'd never hear again. Patricia Diaz, the same woman who had aged 15 years in 6 hours back in 2001. She looked ancient now, hands trembling, hair paper white. She leaned on the podium, eyes sweeping the room. "Time doesn't work right for us anymore," she said. "Once you've been inside, you're never whole again. Some days I'm 30. Some days I'm 90. Today, I'm every age I've ever been." Patricia's gaze locked on me. "Yellowstone Sector 12 is the worst of them. It sits on top of a supervolcano, a beacon for every possible version of itself. That's why it chooses bloodlines. That's why it chose you." She pulled up a screen, maps, graphs, photographs, timelines overlapping, boundaries thinning. "Your zone is going critical. Our models show a major event within the year. Containment will be impossible." Her voice cracked. "The only thing standing between stability and collapse is you." She held up a tablet, pressed play. The room fell silent. On screen, Yellowstone, but not ours. The sky burned a wrong color. Old Faithful erupted endlessly, spraying into an atmosphere that held 2 suns. And in the background, frozen like mannequins, were tourists, rangers, families, all blurred, all moving and not moving at once. Patricia's voice shook. "This is Timeline 47B. The one where Sector 12 fully opened in 1989. The ranger there, your double, sent this before his world collapsed." I leaned closer. The man on the screen was me. Older, eyes hollow, mouth moving in desperation. His voice cut through static. "If you're hearing this, we failed." Sam sees his own face from a collapsed timeline, warning that Sector 12 is about to break. The summit didn't feel like a meeting. It felt like a funeral where nobody would say who died. After Patricia's warning, the room stayed silent until a tall ranger from Denali, Sarah Chen, rolled out a whiteboard covered in graphs. Lines, circles, spirals I couldn't begin to follow. "This," she said, tapping the mess of ink, "is why the boundaries are thinning faster than ever. Not just geology, not just the volcano, it's us." She clicked a remote. The projector flickered to life. Images of smartphones, cameras, GPS trackers. Every one of these devices manipulates electrons and photons at a quantum scale. Every selfie, every GPS ping, every video upload, tiny bridges opening between timelines. One device is harmless. Millions carried into the parks every year. That's a lattice of holes in the boundary. Marcus from the canyon added, voice rough as gravel, "In echo sites we can predict surges down to the hour now. Always spikes when cell towers are busiest. More devices means thinner walls." I thought of the rescued student's phone still posting videos weeks after his disappearance. I thought of the upload that had shown Boone and me walking into 12 before it happened. They wheeled out a glass chamber no bigger than a fish tank. Inside, a compass, a digital clock, and a strip of grass sod still wet with dew. Sarah explained, "This chamber replicates a boundary pocket. Watch." She held up a smartphone streaming a video. As she stepped close, the compass spun. The clock blinked and reset itself to 6:07 p.m., and the grass inside grew taller half an inch in less than 30 seconds. The smell hit me. Cut grass, sharp and wrong, filling the old ranger station. Everyone in the circle shifted uncomfortably. Some plugged their noses. To me, it was a punch to the chest. Sarah powered the phone off. The compass slowed, the clock stilled, the grass stopped growing. "Now you understand," she said. "The more connected the world gets, the thinner the walls. Yellowstone sector is the worst because it sits on a supervolcano. That geothermal energy amplifies the signal. Every timeline where it erupted, every timeline where it didn't, they all bleed through here." She pulled up one last slide, a chart with intersecting curves. "Here's the projection, a convergence window. If nothing changes, all timelines will attempt to synchronize. Earliest date," she swallowed hard, "December 21st, winter solstice, 5:47 a.m. My stomach dropped. That was the exact time stamp from the videos, from the ledger notes, from every impossible file. The room sat in silence. Pens stopped moving. Boots shuffled. Then I heard it, faint at first but growing. A whisper, not from the speakers, not from the people around me, from inside the green ledger in my pack. "Sam, anchor." It was my father's voice, or maybe my own, aged and broken. The other rangers turned toward me. They hadn't heard it, but Patricia had. Her eyes went wide. "It's already talking to you." Sam learns the convergence has a date, and the ledger itself whispers that he must be the anchor. The summit ended, but the voices didn't. Every time I opened the ledger, I swore I could hear a faint chorus, kids humming just under the edge of hearing, like a playground at dusk, like a memory I'd never lived. When I got back to Yellowstone, the humming followed me. Abby had been digging through old paper archives while I was gone. She slid a manila folder across my desk, eyes haunted. "Sam, you need to read this." The file was dated 1979. Incident report, Meriden family, Ohio. 2 children ages 8 and 10. Status, recovered but psychologically destroyed. In red pen across the margin, "We went home, but home wasn't there anymore." The same line the rescued student had whispered last week. Abby's voice was thin. Those kids were institutionalized. They never spoke again except to sing. She hit play on a reel-to-reel tape machine. Static, then faint humming, a nursery rhyme. Not quite Ring Around the Rosie. Not quite London Bridge. Something older, crooked. I felt my chest seize. It was the same tune that had haunted me at the tree line weeks earlier. Boone froze in the doorway. He didn't blink until the tape wound down. Then he said, voice gravel low, I told them to bury that tape. That night I walked the boundary alone. Wind was dead still. My flashlight beam cut through hanging mist. Then I heard them. Children's footsteps, bare feet slapping frozen ground. They circled me in the dark, quick and light, never visible. I spun, heart hammering. Hello, I called. Who's there? The humming rose, surrounding me. I swear I felt small fingers brush my coat sleeve, cold as river stones. When I turned, my light landed on 3 figures at the tree line. Children, maybe 8 or 9, but their faces were blurred, smeared like wet paint. They held hands, swaying as they hummed, and their shadows stretched toward me against the beam of my own light. I stumbled back. My radio hissed alive. Abby's voice, Sam, are you on patrol? Because you're here. Static. Then another voice layered on top, high, childish, overlapping in chorus. We're home, but home isn't there. I dropped the light. By the time I picked it up again, the children were gone. But in the dirt, 3 sets of footprints led straight into Sector 12. And ended in nothing. Sam realizes the children's voices are tied to past victims, and they are still walking the boundary, waiting for him. Boone had always been stone, a man carved out of the same basalt that lined the canyons, unshakable, unmovable, unbreakable. But after the children, I saw the cracks. 2 nights later, Boone didn't show up for shift change. I found him at Sentinel Spur, sitting cross-legged on the frost, radio in one hand, brass ring in the other. His eyes weren't focused on me. They were focused somewhere else, somewhere only he could see. They're calling me, Whitaker, he whispered. Voices I knew 30 years ago. Calder, Patricia, even the kid we lost in '89, they're all there, waiting. The brass ring dangled from his fist. His knuckles were white. You gotta let go, Boone, I said carefully. That's not them, that's the zone wearing their faces. But he shook his head, lips trembling. What if it's not a trick? What if they are really in there, waiting for me to bring them home? Before I could stop him, Boone stood and stepped across the boundary line. For a second, nothing happened. Then his shadow split. One stayed at his feet. The other stretched sideways, jerking against the ground like it wanted to run. Boone, I shouted. I clipped the brass ring to my belt and lunged forward, but the air thickened like water. Every step was a fight. On the radio, Abby screamed, Sam, don't, you're both scattering. I caught him by the arm. His skin was cold, like ice pulled from a deep freezer. Boone, listen to me, you don't have to do this. He turned, and for the first time in 19 years, his eyes were wet. You don't get it, kid, I already did. I broke the rule in '89, and I've been half-scattered ever since. My time's been borrowed, the zone just came to collect. He pressed the brass chain into my hand. You've got the bloodline, I don't, you carry it forward, promise me. Before I could answer, the ground beneath us shuddered like a low-frequency hum rolling up through the stone. Boone's body flickered. One frame here, one frame gone, his face younger, then older, then gone again. The radio crackled with his voice, but not from his mouth, from every channel at once. 72, 72, wait, 72. Then he was gone, no body, no shadow. Just the brass ring in my fist, ice cold, humming faintly like a tuning fork. Back at the station, my hands shaking, I opened the ledger. Fresh ink bled onto the page. Not mine, not Abby's. Boone Hutchkins, Keeper Lost. Incorporated into Sector 12. Anchor passed. At the bottom, a final line written in Boone's scrawl. "Don't follow me, kid. Finish what I couldn't." Boone is consumed by Sector 12, leaving Sam as the sole keeper, with the brass ring now his burden alone. Boone was gone. No body to bury, no grave to mark. Just a name in the ledger, bleeding fresh ink like the zone itself had written the obituary. Abby didn't cry, she just worked. But I could see it, the cracks forming in her, same as they had in Boone. It started small. I'd walk into dispatch and Abby would already be answering a question I hadn't asked yet. Or she'd hand me a coffee before I opened my mouth to request one. The first time it happened, she laughed nervously. "Déjà vu," she said. The third time she didn't laugh. By the end of the week her desk clock was 6 minutes fast. Her own voice would echo a split second before she spoke, like the zone had left a handprint on her and it was spreading. One evening she handed me a thumb drive. "Sam, don't plug this in yet, just keep it." When I asked what was on it, she looked away. "I think it's from me, but not me now, me later." The drive was labeled in Sharpie, "Abby, do not open until after." I shoved it in my pocket. It felt heavy, wrong, like holding a will from someone who wasn't dead yet. 2 days later, we walked the boundary together. She carried the radio, I carried Boone's brass ring. The grass smell rolled through in thick waves even though the meadow was still frozen solid. Abby stopped, staring at the tree line. "Sam," she whispered, "do you see them?" I followed her gaze. "Nothing but dark pines." "They're waving," she said. "They look just like me." Her radio hissed. A child's voice, high and warped, sang the same crooked rhyme from the Meriden tape. Abby dropped the handset like it had burned her. That night she didn't come back to her cabin. I found her at the office, sitting stiff at her desk, eyes locked on the computer screen. "Abby," I asked gently. She turned to me, smiling too wide, too still. And behind her, in the glass reflection of the monitor, another Abby smiled back, older, hair gray, lips moving half a second out of sync. "Don't worry," she said. Her voice doubled, 2 versions overlapping. "I'm still here, I'm still me for now." I opened the green ledger, desperate for answers. Words scratched themselves across the page, jagged and fast. Shifted asset identified, anchor compromised. My throat went dry. Asset, that's how it sees her. The ink bled further, curling letters into a final warning. "When she calls your name, do not answer." Abby begins splitting across timelines. And the ledger warned Sam not to respond when she calls. The date had been hanging over us since the summit. December 21st, winter solstice, 5:47 a.m., the convergence window, and now it was the night before. Sector 12 was louder than ever. Every sensor at the station screamed red, compasses spinning, barometers spiking, thermals painting impossible patterns underground. The forest sounded wrong. Wind in the pines carried echoes that didn't belong to the present, voices of tourists long dead, the crackle of radios that hadn't existed for decades, the whistle of a steam train that hadn't run through Yellowstone since 1903, and threaded through it all like a needle pulling stitches too tight, the smell of cut grass. Abby sat at her desk, pale and trembling. Her reflection in the monitor lagged almost a full second behind. "Sam," she whispered, "it's close. I can feel it pulling me sideways. I hear my future self calling me, telling me to step in." I touched her shoulder. "Stay outside tomorrow. No matter what happens, stay anchored. Read me normal things, grocery lists, baseball scores, your niece's school plays. Don't let the zone use your voice." She nodded, but her eyes didn't convince me. That night I polished the brass ring until it shone heavy and warm in my hands. It didn't feel like metal anymore. It felt like inheritance. I remembered Boone's last words. "You've got the bloodline, I don't, you carry it forward." And my father's scrawl in the ledger, "The zone chooses, it's always been us." I wasn't a ranger anymore. I was an heir to a curse. I opened the green ledger, pen in hand, ready to write what might be my last words. December 20th, winter solstice eve, Boone gone, Abbey compromised, convergence in hours. If I don't return, the ring passes to whoever can hold it. No one can, God help us all. As I finished the sentence, ink bled across the page in handwriting that wasn't mine. We are waiting, all of us, past, future, scattered, at dawn. Just before midnight, a sound ripped through the forest, not animal, not human, a howl of timelines colliding, layered voices stacked on each other, screaming and singing all at once. The station windows shook. The brass ring in my hand vibrated like a struck bell. Abby covered her ears, crying, "They're here already, Sam, the scattered ones, they're standing at the boundary." I looked outside. Hundreds of figures lined the tree line, translucent, blurred, some in ranger uniforms, some in clothes from centuries past. Their mouths opened in perfect unison, and they all whispered my name. On the eve of the solstice, the scattered ones gather at the boundary, chanting for Sam to enter at dawn. Dawn, December 21st, -15 degrees. The sun hadn't cleared the horizon, but Sector 12 was already awake. The boundary shimmered like heat waves off asphalt. The scattered ones stood shoulder to shoulder, stretching as far as I could see, translucent, shaking, waiting, and they were waiting for me. I clipped Boone's brass ring to my belt. Abby's voice crackled through the radio, sharp with fear. "Sam, are you sure? You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." Her breathing hitched. Then she began, steady and strong. "Okay, listen to me, it's Thursday. I burned the coffee this morning. My niece's volcano project exploded all over the gym. I still have to pick up dry cleaning before 6. Normal things, Sam, hold on to them." Her words were a tether. I stepped forward. The world split. Snow became grass, became ash, became water. Trees grew and burned and grew again, cycling in a blink. The sky fractured, stars at dawn, suns at midnight, colors we don't have names for. In the center, an absence. A hole in reality shaped like a circle waiting to be filled. The scattered ones formed a ring around it. Every face I'd ever read in the ledger was there. Meriden children, Patricia Diaz, even Boone. All overlapping, all ages at once. Boone's voice whispered through the static. "Anchor it, kid. Don't let us scatter for nothing." I stepped into the circle. The brass ring on my belt burned hot, vibrating against my hip. The ledger in my hand opened by itself, pages whipping in a storm no one else could feel. Every entry, every disappearance, every impossible sighting, they weren't just records, they were coordinates, instructions. The voices of the scattered poured through me, thousands layered, desperate. I felt myself tearing in every direction. Child, man, old, unborn. Every version of me existed at once, but I held the ledger tight. I held Abby's voice in my ear, listing grocery stores and weather reports and science fairs. Normal things. The things that belong to linear time. I let myself scatter, but I scattered with purpose. Reality buckled. Timelines tried to collapse, folding in on Yellowstone like a house of cards, but I was the weight in the center, the lens, the anchor. The scattered ones screamed and sang, their chorus focused through me. Every fracture pulled tight, every echo contained. For one impossible second, I existed in all times at once. I saw my grandfather standing here in 1962. I saw my father in 1992. I saw Boone's hand passing me the ring, and I saw myself 100 versions guarding 1,000 possible Yellowstones. Then silence. When I woke, it was night. I was still standing, but the snow was undisturbed, the forest quiet. The scattered ones were gone, not erased, anchored, balanced. The boundary shimmered faintly, but it held. On the radio, Abby's voice broke through, choked with relief. "Sam, are you there?" I smiled, though I don't know if I had lips anymore. "Yeah," I said, "I'm here, always here." That was 6 months ago, or yesterday, or 100 years from now. Time doesn't mean the same to me anymore. I exist in every moment of Sector 12, sometimes as a ranger warning hikers off the trail, sometimes as a boy pointing toward safe paths, sometimes as an old man whispering through broken radios. The ledger still writes itself through my hand or someone else's. And Abby keeps her post, reading me normal things, coffee, weather, science, fairs. Her voice is my tether. If you visit Yellowstone, stay on the marked trails. Ignore the hum, ignore the smell of cut grass. If you hear a voice calling your name, mine, Abby's, even your own, don't answer. Some places aren't forbidden to punish you. They are forbidden to protect you. Sector 12 is contained for now, because I am the anchor, the keeper of the impossible, the guardian of the convergence. And I'll be here, always here, in every moment. Sam accepts his fate as anchor of Sector 12, sacrificing linear existence to keep all timelines apart.